I woke up to silence. No vibrating phone, no alert from the family group chat, no happy birthday, sweetheart, or hope today's special. Not even a passive thumbs-up reaction to last year's thread. They say if you've ever been betrayed by family, hitting like brings peace, subscribing brings clarity, and commenting brings karma to those who wronged you. Try it. And tell me where you're watching from. Anyways. I stared at the ceiling, one hand tucked beneath the pillow, listening for a sound that wouldn't come. For a second I thought, maybe they're waiting until later, maybe there's a plan, maybe they're trying to surprise me. I rolled over, reached for my phone and tapped the screen. 7:06 a.m. No notifications. I opened Instagram. Maybe something was posted there. First photo, my mom holding Charlie, our golden retriever. He was sitting in the yard mid-yawn, sunlight hitting his fur just right. The caption read, "Can't believe Charlie's already 7. Time flies. 7 years. For the dog." I clicked into the comments. My dad had replied, "He's aging better than I am." My sister commented, "Still the cutest member of the family." I refreshed the feed, scrolled. Still nothing about me, still nothing from them. I tapped into our group chat, Mom, Dad, my sister Marlene and me. The last message was from 4 days ago, a forwarded photo of someone's car bumper sticker. No response, no conversation. I stared at the thread. Then I whispered to no one. Maybe they just forgot. It wasn't loud. Just enough for me to hear it, admit it. Like if I said it softly enough, it wouldn't hurt. I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Last night, I'd picked up a cupcake from the corner bakery, vanilla bean with a swirl of pink frosting. I set it on the counter, one candle, one match. I lit the candle and watched the flame flicker. Then I whispered, "Happy birthday to me." I stood there for a moment, holding my breath as if the flame might blow itself out from sheer awkwardness. I took a bite. The frosting was too sweet, the cake too dry. Or maybe that was just me, chewing through the ache in my chest. At 9:13 a.m., I checked my messages again. Still nothing. Last year's thread popped into mind. I opened it, scrolled back. My mom had texted, "Hope you're having a beautiful day." My dad sent, "Love you, kiddo, don't party too hard." Marlene had said, "Getting old looks good on you." And underneath it all, my reply, "Thanks guys, love you." I had meant it. Even after everything, I had still loved them. This year I was just deleted. Around noon, I put on jeans and a sweater, trying to make the day feel different. I walked to the cafe on 7th and Sycamore. The barista knew my order. Vanilla oat latte. I sat by the window and watched people pass. A young couple held hands, laughing. A boy on a scooter raced past his dad who shouted, "Wait up, champ!" Someone walked in with a balloon tied to a gift bag. The cafe speakers played a song I used to love, but I couldn't even hum along. I pulled out my phone and checked Facebook. My sister had posted a carousel of beach photos, Marlene and her boyfriend in sunglasses, holding drinks. One caption read, "Sunset and sangria. No better combo." My mother had posted again too. Another photo of Charlie, this time curled up on the couch. "Birthday nap for the birthday boy." I wasn't even jealous of the dog, just stunned, invisible. I typed a text to my mom. "Hey." I stared at it, deleted it. Then I typed, "Just wanted to say hi." Deleted that too. What was I going to do? Beg to be remembered? I ordered another latte just to have something in front of me. Sipped it slowly, burned my tongue a little. I kept thinking, maybe they would call at noon. Maybe that was the plan, no call. Back at home, I curled up on the couch and opened Netflix, watched the same 3 episodes of a show I didn't care about. I couldn't tell you what happened in any of them. At 3:48 p.m., I checked my email. Promotions? Spam? A coupon from the pet supply store I'd used once. No birthday card, no surprise delivery, no last-minute apology message. I scrolled through my photo gallery, found a picture from my 18th birthday. I had made cupcakes for my own party back then too. Half the family was busy that day. Marlene's graduation had taken precedence. I zoomed in on my face in the photo, smiling, trying, always trying. By 6:30, the day had passed like a shadow. I hadn't even bothered to open the bottle of wine I'd bought. It didn't feel like something worth toasting. I texted Clara, my best friend since college. "We still on for Thursday?" She replied in seconds. "Absolutely. Also, wait, did I miss something? Today's the 12th, right?" "Yeah," I replied. "Just another Tuesday." "Ava, please tell me it's not your birthday." I didn't answer for a few minutes. Then I typed, "It is. But don't worry, you just became the first person to say it." She called immediately. "Ava, why didn't you tell me?" Clara asked. I sighed. "It's not your job to remember." "Actually it is," she said. "Best friend clause, page 2, line 4. Never forget the birthday." I laughed a little. For the first time all day. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. A delivery. A single cupcake. Red velvet. A tiny paper flag stuck in the top that read, "You matter." A note was taped to the box. "From Clara. For the girl who lights everyone else's candles. Today's yours." I read it twice. That one gesture, small, quiet, beautiful, felt bigger than any group chat message ever could. I sat by the window, cupcake in hand, as the streetlights turned on. I didn't light a candle this time. I didn't need to. I took a photo. No smile. Just me. Just honest. Then I whispered once more, "Happy birthday, Ava." It still hurt. But it didn't feel empty anymore, because even though they hadn't remembered, I had. And sometimes, being the only one who remembers your worth is the first step to showing the world. This wasn't the first time. That's the part that hurt more than anything. It wasn't just a one-time slip, a moment of forgetfulness. It was a pattern. A rhythm of being forgotten that had threaded through every year of my life like a sad, uninvited tradition. I remember my 13th birthday. That year, my family went to the Cayman Islands. I stayed home. "You had school," my mother had said. "We couldn't just take you out in the middle of the semester." "But it's spring break," I had said. She waved me off. "Not for your school. And anyway, we booked this months ago." I spent that birthday with my friend's grandmother. Mrs. Dorsey let me bake a chocolate cake from a box and put 13 candles on it, even though we both knew the oven was uneven and the cake would lean to one side. Still, she sang the song. Still, she smiled when I made a wish. They came back with sunburns and souvenirs. I got a keychain shaped like a turtle. No card, no cake. When I turned 18, it was Marlene's graduation. She gave a speech, valedictorian of her class, and my parents rented out the entire back patio of an Italian restaurant for her party. "She worked so hard," my dad had said. "She deserves a proper celebration." They didn't forget my birthday that year. They just postponed it. 1 week later, we had dinner at home, frozen lasagna, store-bought cookies, a plastic banner from the dollar store that still had the fold creases in it. Marlene had laughed. "This is so cute, retro." I'd smiled, pretended to agree. My 25th? That was almost funny. I remember checking my phone all day. Nothing. I finally sent a message to our group chat that night. "Did you guys forget something?" No one replied until the next morning. My mother texted, "Oh my God, I feel horrible. Happy belated birthday, sweetheart. Hope it was lovely." Marlene wrote, "Oops, I was thinking of you all day, promise." My dad sent a gif of fireworks. That was it. I didn't reply. I had baked my own cake that year too. Red velvet. I remember dropping it on the floor while taking it out of the oven and sitting there, back against the cabinet, laughing and crying at the same time. They had forgotten again. But I never did. I always remembered theirs. I baked carrot cake for my mom every April 17th, even when she said she was on a diet. I made pancakes shaped like guitars for my dad's birthday because he used to play in a college band and still talked about it like he was Springsteen. For Marlene's birthday, I designed custom invites and handmade decorations when she turned 21, because she wanted a rooftop party with sparkle but not glitter. And I showed up. I always showed up. Every reminder in my calendar was labeled with hearts. Every year, like clockwork, I was the first to call. That's what made the forgetting feel so sharp. It wasn't just that they missed a date, it was that they never saw me, never truly considered me worth remembering. I brought it up once, years ago. I had said, "Sometimes it feels like you guys just don't think about me." My mother had blinked and said, "That's not fair." And my father had chimed in, "You've always been so independent, we just figured you didn't care about that stuff." "You're the strong one," my mother had added. "Marlene is more emotional, you know?" What I heard was, "She gets the softness. You get the silence." Strength was their reason, their excuse. But what is strength if it means being invisible? I started writing everything down. Not journaling exactly, just memories. Dates. The quiet moments that had shaped me. Things like, May 4th, Marlene got a bike, I got her old one. Still had her name in sparkly letters on the frame. November 13th. School play. I played a tree. They said they were proud of me, but they didn't come. July 28th. I made lemon bars for Mom's book club. She said they were a hit. Didn't say thank you. I wasn't keeping score. I just wanted to remember the shape of things. How they had quietly taught me my role. How every birthday became a mirror I didn't ask to look into. I remember my 21st. My roommates threw a party, loud music, glowing cups, people I barely knew spilling drinks on the rug. I spent most of the night on the fire escape with a slice of pizza, listening to the laughter from inside, and wondering if my parents had even remembered I was legal now. They hadn't called. Not until the day after. "Hey, birthday girl," my dad said. "You go wild last night?" "Not really," I replied. He chuckled. "You were always the responsible one. Always. Always the quiet one. The strong one. The afterthought." When I launched my agency, I sent them the website. No one replied. 2 weeks later, my mom called to ask if I could help Marlene's boyfriend with a logo. No mention of my work, no congratulations, just a favor. They weren't cruel, that's the thing. They didn't yell or insult or disown me, they just forgot me. Again and again, in tiny, invisible ways. And somehow, I kept forgiving them. I kept hoping the next year would be different, that someone would say, "Hey, let's plan something for Ava." But it never happened. So this year, when the silence came, when the cupcake sat alone on my counter and my phone screen stayed dark, I didn't even feel surprised. Just tired. Tired of carrying the weight of being okay with it, of pretending I didn't care. Because I did care. I always cared. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and said out loud, "This isn't new." It echoed softly in the stillness of my room. And I knew then, something needed to change. Not them. Me. I couldn't keep shrinking myself to fit their version of who I was. I couldn't keep swallowing the sting of being forgotten just to maintain the illusion of a loving family. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Not really. But I was done being the one who remembered everyone while no one remembered me. That realization, that quiet decision, it felt like the beginning of something. Something bold. Something honest. Something I hadn't let myself imagine before. For a long time, I didn't correct them. Whenever my mother said, "She's always been our artsy one," I just smiled and let it hang in the air. When my dad introduced me at gatherings as the creative type, like I was some hobbyist painting watercolors in a basement, I nodded politely, because correcting them would have required more energy than I had. And besides, part of me believed them. In college, I switched majors 3 times before landing on design. I loved storytelling, visual problem-solving, branding. But it wasn't law or medicine or accounting. It wasn't the kind of degree my family bragged about over wine and cheese. So when I graduated and started freelancing, they barely noticed. My sister, Hannah, had just gotten her second promotion at the consulting firm. My brother was moving to Berlin for a job in tech. Me? I think she's doing some logos or something, I heard my aunt say once at a barbecue. I was standing 5 feet away. She wasn't wrong. I was doing logos for $80 a pop. At one point, I was eating oatmeal with a fork because I couldn't afford a new spoon. But I didn't give up. I stayed up late watching branding breakdowns on YouTube. I read books on copywriting, psychology, marketing. I said yes to jobs even when I didn't feel ready. I made mistakes. I learned. I delivered. Then one day, a small coffee shop client referred me to a boutique wellness brand. Then they referred me to a lifestyle coach. Then came a fitness app. Then a luxury skincare startup. It wasn't overnight, but it was steady. 3 years in, I had my own LLC, a 4-person team, retainers from clients in 3 time zones, an accountant, a savings account, health insurance. I wasn't rich, not by Instagram standards, but I was stable, respected in my niche. I signed a lease on a light-filled condo in the city, bought real dishes, real chairs, and yet, no one in my family ever asked what I did. Not really. They assumed I was still struggling, still figuring it out, still sitting at my laptop making birthday invitations for Etsy moms. Must be nice to work in your pajamas, Hannah once said. I was designing a global campaign for a $30 million product launch at the time, but I didn't correct her. That's the thing about invisibility. Eventually it becomes armor, a cloak of quiet power, until one day you get tired of wearing it. And that day came the morning after my birthday. I opened my emails, messages from clients, vendors, collaborators, Slack pings, campaign results, wins. Then I opened the family group chat. Just silence. The last message was a meme Hannah had sent the night before. A dog in sunglasses. No one had responded. I scrolled up, past my own birthday wishes from years before, the cakes I'd posted for Mom, the travel vouchers I'd bought for Dad, the hand-drawn card I'd sent to Hannah when she got her dog. And yet, nothing for me. Not even a GIF. Not even a heart emoji. They still think I'm their artsy little failure, I said out loud. The words stung, but they also made something settle in my spine. I wasn't that girl anymore. I had built something, quietly, brick by brick, and they hadn't noticed. But that was about to change. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be seen. Not pitied, not applauded, just recognized. So I brewed some coffee, sat by the window, and opened a blank design file on my laptop. This year, I decided, I wouldn't let them define what my birthday meant. Not anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was sad. Not even because I was angry. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, watching the faint orange glow of passing cars cut across the drywall. And all I could think about was how silent the day had been. No call, no card, no message. Just silence. And then, just as I was about to roll over, I remembered something. The billboard. It stood tall at the corner of Birkeland Avenue and 9th, the same street where my parents lived. Giant, digital, blazing bright in LED. You could see it from their kitchen, from the upstairs hallway, from their front porch. I remembered being stuck in traffic one summer when my dad pointed at it and said, "That thing's an eyesore." My sister had joked, "Unless it's my face on it." I smiled in the dark. I whispered to myself, what if I didn't stay quiet this time? My heart started racing, not out of bitterness, but because for the first time in years, I felt free. Free to do something for me, not for approval, not for applause, just for expression. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number. Tobias Grant. Outdoor ad sales. Tobias had worked with one of my early branding clients, a boutique protein shake startup that wanted to advertise on highway billboards. We'd bonded over fonts and bad kerning choices. He owed me a favor. I texted, "Hey Tobias. Random question. You still handle Birkeland Avenue billboard?" He replied in 4 minutes. Yes, want it? I stared at the screen, took a breath, then typed, "What's the rate for a 2-week slot starting next Monday?" A minute later, digital, $1,200 total. That works? I laughed. It absolutely worked. I transferred the payment that night. Fast, clean, no second thoughts. Then I sat at my desk, opened Illustrator, and began designing. No logo, no promotion, no passive aggression, just a message, a soft punch. A mirror held up in 25-foot letters. The final design was simple: white background, clean serif font, a centered block of text, and at the bottom, in italics, signed "Someone who learned the hard way." I scheduled it to go live 1 week after my birthday. Not immediately, not as an emotional outburst, but as a quiet echo, a ripple after the silence. I wanted it to land in the middle of their routines, after they'd already forgotten, after the cake had spoiled in the fridge, if there had been any to begin with. I emailed Tobias the files. He replied, "Beautiful, bold, subtle. I'll upload it to the queue." I sent one more line. "Thanks, Toby. Really." He wrote, "They'll see it, and I hope you see yourself now too." I stared at that message longer than I meant to. Because that's what this whole thing was about, wasn't it? Visibility. Not just theirs. Mine. Not revenge. Not humiliation. Just a reminder that I existed, that I mattered, even if they couldn't remember my birthday. The rest of the week went on like any other. Work, emails, client pitches, no word from my family. The group chat remained silent, not even a meme this time. I posted nothing about my birthday, no dramatic captions, no Instagram stories. I just lived and waited, because sometimes the loudest message isn't the one shouted, it's the one simply seen. 1 week later, at 6:03 a.m., the billboard switched from a car insurance ad to my design, and I didn't post a single thing about it. I didn't tag anyone, didn't send a message to the group, didn't drive by, not yet. I just sipped my coffee and waited for the world to do what it always does. Notice, eventually. By noon, I got my first ping, a screenshot from an unknown number. "Is this you?" It was a photo of the billboard, taken from someone's car. The sky was still pink behind it. By 2 p.m., it was circulating on Twitter, then Facebook, then a niche inspirational blog for women in branding reposted it. Captioned, "Whoever did this, you're not alone." Still, I didn't say anything. I let the message live on its own, because it wasn't about me being right. It was about me finally saying something, saying I was here, I felt forgotten, but I will no longer stay invisible. Later that evening, I finally drove to Berkland Avenue. I parked a block away, walked to the corner with my hood up. There it was, the billboard, lit like a silent monument. I stood there alone in the dusk, a warm breeze tugging at my coat sleeves, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen, not because anyone was watching, but because I had stepped into the light, on purpose. I whispered to myself, "Happy birthday." Again. And then I smiled, because I didn't need a room full of people to clap. I just needed one version of me to finally show up and applaud. The billboard went live at exactly 6:03 a.m. I was already awake. Not because I'd set an alarm, but because I hadn't really slept. My mind was too full, not with revenge. This wasn't about that. It was something deeper, something rawer, like I was finally breathing air I had denied myself for years. From my apartment window, the morning light crawled across the floorboards as I slipped on my sneakers, coffee untouched, hair pulled back, heart still. I didn't rush. I didn't have to. Berkland Avenue was already bathed in soft amber light by the time I parked across the street. I turned off the ignition, sat back, watched it cycle on the LED screen, frame by frame. Black background, white serif font, no graphics, no brand name, just the words. "If your family ever forgot your birthday, don't worry, you're still worth celebrating." Signed, "Someone who learned the hard way." I watched it loop again and again. Then I saw the curtains. First one, then three. In the row of tidy homes just across the street, my parents' house right in the center. My mother's pale blue curtains twitched once, twice, then stayed open. I didn't need to see faces. I knew who was watching. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. Marcy. Is Ava okay? That was my sister. No context, no greeting. Just a text to the family group chat. One of the few times it lit up when it wasn't about someone else's milestone. Their dog's birthday, her baby's first tooth, her husband's barbecue. Now, finally, the notification said my name. A photo followed. It was a shaky, zoomed-in picture of the billboard taken from her living room window. The group chat went silent after that. No responses, not a single emoji. Then came the call. My father. I didn't answer at first. Let it buzz once, twice, before finally picking up. His voice was tight, flat, the kind of tone he used when we were kids and spilled something on the new carpet. My father said, "This feels dramatic." I stayed quiet for a beat. I replied, "Good morning, Dad." He said, "What is that sign about?" I said, "It's about what happens when people stay quiet for too long." He said, "If you had something to say, you could have just said it." I replied, "I tried." For years there was a pause, then he hung up. 5 minutes later, a text from my mother came in. "Mom, couldn't you have just told us how you felt? Instead of this? Instead of this? This. A silent candle. This. 2 decades of being forgotten on the one day that used to matter to me. This. A billboard, because nothing else had worked. I didn't respond to her either. Not right away. Instead, I drove around the block, parked again, and crossed the street. Just to see it from their side. The sidewalk was warm under my sneakers. A breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass and someone's morning toast. I stood on the same corner I used to wait on for the school bus, back when they'd forget to pack my lunch, or forget it was picture day, or forget to pick me up. But I remembered everything. Always. I stared up at the screen as it looped once more. If your family ever forgot your birthday, don't worry. You're still worth celebrating. Signed, someone who learned the hard way. A group of teens passed by, one of them stopping to snap a picture. I heard one girl whisper, "That's actually kind of amazing." Another one said, "Damn, that hits." And then they walked on. But my feet stayed planted. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I thought I would be. That I'd feel some kind of spiteful glee watching their confusion unfold. But instead, I felt light. Like I had peeled something heavy off my chest and set it on fire right in front of them. This wasn't for them. It never was. It was for the little version of me who used to cry in her room, wondering what she had done wrong to be forgotten again. For the teenager who baked her own cake and made a wish she didn't even believe would come true. For the woman I became, quiet, creative, powerful, who had waited long enough to be seen. I took out my phone, opened the camera, snapped a photo of the billboard from that corner. It looked massive, clean, proud, exactly as I'd designed it. I sent it to myself and saved it in a folder called Reminders. Then I walked back to the car. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was from a contact I didn't recognize. "Unknown number. Saw your billboard. Whoever you are, thank you. I needed that this morning." Then another. "Unknown number. My daughter just left for college. She said that sign gave her goosebumps. From a mom. Thank you." The messages kept coming, slowly at first, then more steadily throughout the day. The sign had no name on it, but somehow, people knew. Or maybe they just felt it, that it was from someone who had been invisible once, and had decided to speak. By late afternoon, a photo of the billboard was posted on a local Reddit thread, then Instagram, then a tweet. "This sign on Berkland Avenue is the emotional gut punch I didn't know I needed." By sunset, a local news blogger had written a short piece titled, "Anonymous Billboard Speaks Volumes About Family Neglect." I didn't comment, didn't engage, but I read every single one, and when my phone rang again, this time from my sister, I let it go to voicemail. Marcy's voice, unsure and shaky, filled the speaker when I played it back later that night. Marcy said, "Hey, we saw it. We're just worried, okay? You could have talked to us." She paused, then said, "But I guess, maybe we weren't listening." Then silence. I didn't delete it. I just closed my phone and placed it face down on the nightstand. That night, for the first time in years, I fell asleep smiling. Not because they'd noticed, but because I had. I'd noticed myself, and I'd celebrated her, in lights 30 feet tall. They said nothing at first. The day the billboard went up, my phone didn't buzz. No calls, no texts, no apologies. But the internet? That was different. Someone walking their dog took a photo and posted it on a neighborhood group. "Wow, saw this near Berkland Avenue. Who heard her?" One caption read. Then someone else reshared it on Twitter. "Whoever you are, I see you. Happy belated." Followed by a hashtag, #sign worth celebrating. By evening, the photo had made its way onto one of those uplifting Instagram pages that collect anonymous acts of rebellion and heartache. People began reposting it with their own stories in the captions. "My family missed my birthday too. Been there. This billboard said what I've always wanted to scream. To whoever put this up, thank you." I sat on my couch, legs tucked under me, watching the numbers grow. Likes, shares, comments, some from strangers, some from verified profiles, some from people who hadn't spoken to me in years. An old classmate from high school DM'd me. "I think this is you, right? If so, this is iconic and brave. Happy birthday." And then there was the florist, a small local shop downtown I'd only been to once. They sent a bouquet to my office, pale yellow roses, a single pink peony in the middle. No card, just a sticky note scrawled with ink. "You made me cry. Happy belated." I stood there, holding the vase, blinking through a mixture of disbelief and something else. Something soft, healing, like the opposite of silence. Because that's what it had always been about. Not revenge, not spectacle. Silence. The ache of being passed over so many times you start to question if you were ever meant to be seen. So no, this wasn't about the billboard. It was about not whispering into a void anymore. That night, my inbox was filled with emails I never expected. A woman from Seattle. "I lost my sister 2 years ago. Our family barely acknowledged it. But your message reminded me she mattered. Thank you, a father of 3. Your words shook me. I called my estranged daughter today for the first time in 5 years. I don't know if she'll answer, but I wanted you to know. You sparked that." Even a therapist wrote in, "I've shared the photo with some of my clients. We're using it to talk about visibility, about being honest with ourselves, about asking to be celebrated, not hidden." It wasn't just me anymore. It had rippled out. And yet, at the center of all this attention, my family remained silent. No comment in the group chat. No calls that first day. Not even a sarcastic, "nice billboard" from my sister. Just nothing. But I knew them. I knew what silence meant in my family. Silence wasn't absence. It was strategy. It was avoidance dressed up as pride. If you didn't mention the thing, maybe it would vanish. Maybe no one would have to say, "I'm sorry." They'd done it for years. Missed birthdays, skipped milestones, deflected feelings. Why would this be any different? So I didn't reach out. I didn't text, "Did you see it?" I didn't send a link. I didn't explain. Because I didn't owe them that. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be understood. I was already heard. A week passed. The online chatter settled into background hum. People moved on as they do. But I didn't. I moved forward. The billboard stayed up. And one morning, as I walked to get coffee, the barista looked at me strangely. "You're her, right?" she said. "The billboard woman?" I hesitated, then nodded. She grinned and handed me a muffin with my drink. "On the house. Happy birthday." Whenever it was. I smiled and said, "Thank you. That's really kind." And in that tiny moment, I realized something. I didn't feel embarrassed. I didn't feel exposed. I felt proud. Because I hadn't done it for attention. I hadn't done it to make a scene. I did it to mark the boundary between who I used to be and who I was finally becoming. Later that day, my mother finally sent a message, just 5 words. "We need to talk soon." No mention of the billboard. No apology. Just the same quiet implication. "You've made us uncomfortable. Let's fix that." But I didn't reply right away. Instead, I stood by the office window and looked out toward the street. In the distance, if you angled just right, you could catch a sliver of the billboard over the rooftops, its text still glowing in bold white letters. "If your family ever forgot your birthday, don't worry, you're still worth celebrating. Signed, someone who learned the hard way." I read it to myself again, slowly. Then I whispered aloud, "That someone is me." That night, I journaled for the first time in months, not to analyze what went wrong, but to capture what was finally right. I wrote, "This wasn't vengeance. It was restoration. This wasn't an attack. It was a flare. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a testimony." And I signed the bottom, Ava, the visible one. The next day, I opened an email from a podcast producer. "Saw your billboard. Want to share your story on our show?" I laughed, then exhaled. Maybe someday, maybe when I'm ready, maybe when I can tell it without shaking, or maybe not at all. Because maybe the point wasn't to make noise, it was to live unmuted, to take up space, to say, "I exist, I matter, I celebrate myself, with or without your applause." And just like that, the billboard didn't feel like a stunt anymore. It felt like a signature, like the final stroke of paint on a canvas that had waited too long to be seen. "I didn't do it to shame them," I said to a friend over dinner that week. "I did it to remind myself I'm worth more than silence." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Well," she said, "mission accomplished." And in that moment, I didn't feel small. I felt luminous, visible. Finally. The first call came 2 days after the florist's bouquet arrived. My phone buzzed while I was in a meeting, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw the name I hadn't heard spoken out loud in months. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Later that night, I stood in my kitchen, a cup of tea warming my hands, and pressed play. "Hi, sweetheart. It's Mom. Listen, we saw the billboard, and I just want you to know we didn't forget your birthday. We just assumed, with everything going on, you probably didn't care that much. You've always been so independent. We thought maybe birthdays weren't your thing anymore." She paused, then added, "Call me back, okay?" I didn't. Not right away. Because here's the thing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I'd braced for this version of the narrative, the soft deflection, the "we assumed," the subtle shift of blame back onto me. I took another sip of tea and let her words melt into the quiet hum of my apartment. Later that night, my phone pinged again. "Sister, Mariah text message." She wrote, "You really made a thing out of this, huh?" No punctuation, just those words, floating in a bubble, sharp as a paper cut. I stared at the screen, and then I typed back, "I made a point. Not a scene." I hovered over send, then pressed it. Her reply came a minute later. "Are you coming to dinner on Sunday?" No apology, no acknowledgement, just an invitation. Like nothing had happened. Like a billboard hadn't been erected a few hundred feet from their living room. Like I hadn't spent the past week rediscovering my voice in the spaces they left empty. I set the phone down, walked to the window. It was raining lightly. The kind of soft drizzle that made the streetlights blur into watercolor halos. Across the street, a couple huddled under a red umbrella, laughing about something. A dog barked in the distance. I thought about Sunday dinner, the roast chicken, the way my dad always chewed too loudly, the way Mariah would probably show up late, hair curled, stories ready. Would they pretend nothing had happened? Would they talk around it like usual? I pictured myself sitting there, smiling politely, absorbing their half-hearted efforts like a sponge again. And for what? So they could feel absolved? so I could slide back into the role they preferred, the quiet, artsy one who didn't cause trouble? I glanced at my calendar. That Sunday was already booked. Not this week, I whispered to myself. Then I picked up the phone and replied, "Thanks, but I have plans." A few minutes later, a new group chat buzzed to life on my phone. Friends who actually remember birthdays. It was Tara, my college roommate, who made it. She added, "We've got brunch on Sunday. Bring that birthday energy. We're celebrating you, even if it's a week late." And they did. Sunday morning arrived with sun slanting through my blinds. I threw on a jumpsuit, swept my hair into a bun, and walked into a room filled with mimosas, music, and a chocolate cake with my name on it. Tara ran up and hugged me. "You look incredible," she said, "and I hope you're ready for bottomless everything." Nina handed me a gift bag. This isn't much, but it screamed main character, and that felt right. The bag had a glittery notebook inside, the cover embossed with gold lettering, "Write your own damn story." I laughed. A real one, from the chest, the kind that felt like it had been waiting. There were no strained silences that morning, no careful treading, just joy, lightness, friends who had texted at midnight on my birthday, friends who had remembered. They toasted to me, they played my favorite playlist, they made me feel, finally, visible. As we ate cake, Tara leaned over and asked, "So, how's the Billboard situation?" I grinned. "Still standing." "And your family?" she asked. "They reached out," I said. "Said I should have just told them how I felt." She raised her eyebrows. "As if you hadn't spent years doing that quietly." I shrugged. They always mistook my silence for not caring. But I was just tired of repeating myself. Tara nodded. "Well, you spoke loud enough this time." I bit into a forkful of cake and let the sweetness dissolve. She was right. I had spoken, without yelling, without accusations. Just truth, lit up in 30-foot letters for the world to see. And now, I didn't owe anyone an explanation for not showing up to Sunday dinner. I didn't owe them performance, or grace, or a quick return to their idea of normal. Because normal was what had erased me in the first place. When I got home that afternoon, I lit a candle and sat by the window. The rain had returned, soft, rhythmic, patient. I opened my notebook, the one from Nina, and wrote, "Visibility isn't about vengeance. It's about choosing to exist out loud." Then I closed it, leaned back, and let the quiet wrap around me, not as punishment, but as peace. I was no longer waiting for them to catch up. I wasn't orbiting their schedule, or their comfort, or their awkward justifications. I had my own calendar now, and it was full. Of brunches, of joy, of the people who already saw me. 2 weeks later, the Billboard's time was up. I knew it the moment I opened my eyes that morning. There was no alarm, no fanfare, just this quiet sense inside me like a book about to close. I lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the gentle whir of the fan overhead. Then I got up, made coffee, took my time. I knew exactly where I was going that day. I parked across from the Billboard just after noon. The sky was pale blue, streaked with thin clouds. A warm breeze rolled through the neighborhood, the same street I had grown up walking, the same one I used to hurry down with schoolbooks tucked under my arm, hoping my family might be watching from the windows. Now I stood across from it, older, stronger, unapologetically myself. The Billboard was still lit, still visible, still speaking. If your family ever forgot your birthday, don't worry, you're still worth celebrating. Signed, someone who learned the hard way. I crossed the street and stood directly beneath it. My shadow stretched out long on the sidewalk. I took out the little white bakery box I'd picked up on the way. Inside, a single chocolate cupcake with gold sprinkles. My favorite. I set it gently on the bench near the corner, lit a candle, and let the flame flicker in the afternoon light. I looked up again, took a breath, and snapped a photo. It wasn't for social media. Not for anyone else. It was for me. A moment to remember that this, all of it, had never been about revenge. It had been about presence. My presence. My choice to stop dimming myself just to fit inside the lines they drew around me. I stood there for a while, the sun warming my skin, the candle still burning beside me. Cars drove past. A jogger offered a small, knowing smile. Someone on a bike slowed down, glanced up, and nodded. I picked up the cupcake and blew out the candle. Then I whispered, softly, "Happy birthday." It didn't matter that the date had passed. It didn't matter that no one else was singing. I celebrated myself anyway. That evening, back at my apartment, I printed the photo. A clean, high-contrast shot, me in front of the billboard, candle burning, cupcake in hand, a quiet defiance in my posture. I framed it and placed it on the wall of my home office, right above my desk, just beside the whiteboard where I tracked my client work and goals, a reminder, not of what they forgot, but of what I remembered, myself. A few days later, I had a video call with a new client, a nonprofit working on mental health campaigns for underrepresented communities. As we wrapped up the call, the lead strategist smiled and said, "By the way, is that the billboard behind you? I thought I recognized it from a story online." I smiled. "It is." She leaned in. "That message, it meant something to people, including me. You have no idea." I nodded. "I think I do now." She grinned. "Well, you're exactly the kind of person we want shaping this campaign. Welcome aboard." After the call ended, I sat there in silence for a moment. The silence was different now, not empty, not lonely, just quiet. And in that quiet, I found something I'd been searching for all my life. A sense of being centered, seen, but more importantly, seen by myself. That night, my sister messaged me again. "So, is the billboard coming down?" I replied, "Eventually." But its point already landed. She didn't write back, and I didn't expect her to, because I wasn't writing for her anymore. I wasn't designing things in the hope that someone would finally notice me at the dinner table or ask me about my work or send a text without being prompted. That was the old me. This me had already lit the sky. A few days later, I walked past the corner where the billboard stood. It had changed. A new ad had gone up. Something about a car dealership, bright colors and all. It looked like any other billboard. Loud. Temporary. I smiled. Because mine hadn't been loud, and it certainly wasn't temporary. Mine had made people stop, think, feel. It had done what I'd always hoped to do, with my art, with my work, with my presence. It had reminded someone, maybe thousands of someones, that being forgotten doesn't mean you disappear. You can still stand up. You can still light a candle. You can still be seen, even if you have to design the billboard yourself, especially if you do. I took one last look, then kept walking, the wind curling gently around my shoulders like a whisper of affirmation. Back home, I lit a small candle again. Not for any occasion, just because I could. I curled up on the couch, pulled a soft blanket over my legs, and opened my notebook, the same one my friend had given me at brunch. Inside the front cover, I scribbled one final line. "You don't need their permission to exist, just your own reason to shine." And I smiled, because I had found mine. At last. If you enjoyed the story, make sure to subscribe for good luck.